framed it and put it on my wall. I think it would have had a much better home here at my house. They work. Like they just they sit down and then they do whatever they're able to do in a day.
I'm happy to be a part of the legacy you're building with Eclectic Arts.
Same.
I need to be outside. That's my office.
I write all of my music melody first.
They know about me more than me.
That's an expression that only my mom used to say, and nobody used that. I never heard anyone saying that.
You know, what'd be really cool is after all of this work that we get to create something that shows people the sort of journey they've always wanted to go on. That's kind of what I'm after. I'd love to figure it out for myself, but I'd love to inspire some people to actually engage and consciously create their lives.
I'm strong, I'm superwoman. I'm superwoman. I'm superwoman.
Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts, based here in Seattle, Washington. Thanks so much for joining me on this Thursday, the 2nd of June, 2022. Goodness, we're almost halfway through this year. And as always, some really quick housekeeping details before we get to tonight's interview. Coming up next Wednesday, the 8th of June, this is brand new because initially I had an in-person event that was scheduled for Wednesday and that got moved to next Friday. So this guest jumped on that date. So at 7 p.m. Pacific next Wednesday, I have a guest that if you'd like to know specifically who this is, please follow me on my Instagram account where I post everything first, which is Eclectic Arts Media. I will start to tease and post some of the information about her. I have had a guest like this on maybe 4 times, but she has something unique to her background that I'm really curious to hear about and to ask her questions about. So again, that's going to be on Wednesday, the 8th at 7 p.m. And then, as I mentioned, on Tuesday, on the 18th of June, which is a Saturday at 5 p.m., the wonderful band Alice, which is where all of this started for me back in May of 2020, doing these virtual interviews. They did a virtual tour, invited me to open up their tour by doing interviews. They're going back out on the road in person, but they wanted to kind of have fun and do a throwback. So on the 18th, they're going to do a live stream concert, just like they were doing back in the day. And they wanted me to come on and do an interview. The only twist is I'm going to be the one who's interviewed. So there's 6 of them now officially in the band instead of the 5 official members back in 2020. So I don't know what they're going to ask me, but it should be a lot of fun. I love that band, and they're going to be up here on July 1st here in Seattle. So I'll get to actually see them in person, which I haven't seen. Gosh, that was 2017 was last time I actually saw them in person, but we did a ton of work obviously virtually. So that's going to be on the 18th of June. And again, if you follow me on my Instagram account, that's where I post everything first about what's coming up, what I'm doing in person. You know, all these kind of worlds are just kind of clashing together. The Tribeca Festival starts next Wednesday, which I will be covering virtually. So it just kind of goes on and on and on. If this is the first time, if you're joining me on my YouTube channel, if you could do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. I don't have a ton of live streams set like I used to like last year, so you won't get inundated in your inbox. So it really does help me out so you know what's coming up. And if you're on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there, that's where, again, with Alice, that's where I started all of this work. So I always maintain a presence on Twitch. And if you're really enjoying what I'm doing, there is always a PayPal me donation tip link in every YouTube video description that I do. It is my birthday this month. If you want to help me out, I have no shame whatsoever. But I'm just really glad to be back. As I mentioned on Tuesday, it's been over a month for me to get back into the virtual world, and actually back into any of the media world, just because I was dealing with the dreaded COVID that we've been dealing with for the last 2.5 years. But I'm doing well now, so I'm just glad to be back. And let's get to tonight. All right. My guest today is a cinematic creative artist that I first interviewed in March of last year. Goodness. Her film, American Birthright, is a moving tale of her own personal journey, and it's been resonating with audiences ever since its premiere. Please welcome back to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Becky Tahel.
Ooh, it's so nice to be back here. Oh my God, I can't believe it. You are one of my first ever interviews about the film right when we started the film festival circuit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You're a big deal. You're very memorable to me and my team. So thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited to catch up.
Well, that's awesome, Becky. And I love talking with you the first time, so I'm so glad you had time to. I know you got a lot of things going on professionally and personally. So, what I want to do for people that are watching this that missed our first interview, tisk tisk, let's kind of talk about American Birthright for people that aren't familiar with the film.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of do the whole catching up and what's happened because lots happened in your life. So for people that don't know about the film, what can you tell them about it?
So American Birthright essentially starts with a crisis of an interfaith marriage that pops up in my family. As an Israeli-born American Jew, we moved when I was 7. It was always sort of ingrained in me as part of our culture that you marry a Jew. A Jew marries a Jew, and that's just sort of how we keep this thing alive. And so we never had interfaith marriage as an experience in our family until my sister gets engaged to a non-Jew. And so that really brought up a whole bunch of stuff for me, at which point I decided to create naively this documentary about that question, why marry Jewish? I felt like I was probably not the only one struggling with that sort of question of like, do we need to marry like? And what are the pros? What are the cons? What's the deal? And what happens about 25 minutes into the documentary, and it's real fun. And we go asking a bunch of family members and rabbis and some celebrities I worked with, all about if I should marry a Jew or not. I realized that there's a deeper question I'm actually asking, and that until I answer that deeper question that's sort of buried within, I won't have the answer to why marry Jewish. And that deeper question is, why be Jewish? If I can answer why be Jewish, I can double back and personally for myself find an answer. And the movie really changed my life. It's 66 minutes. It's a documentary. You see the journey that happens over the course of 4 years of traveling and learning and digging and existential crisising. And at the end, I come to a personal conclusion. And it's really been inspiring audiences to question their own faith, Jewish or not, which, we had such wonderful feedback from you, Mark, too. Just like, I'm not a Jew, but wow, it really pushed me to think about why and how I self-identify, which as a filmmaker, especially as a documentary filmmaker with a personal journey on the screen, which I was like not intending for this to be as personal as it became, is such a dream come true to be able to inspire an audience to ask themselves that question.
Yeah, it shows the power of cinema. And I've been so fortunate to watch a film like yours and many others where I turn off the TV or what have you, and I'm sitting there thinking for many, many hours, if not days later, about what was brought up within that film. And yours absolutely did the same thing to me.
I love that. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and I know some things that I've seen, and hopefully you can kind of expound upon. It seems like you've taken American Birthright like into the classroom as a teaching tool. You've done some other really cool things with it. And I used to be a teacher, so I would love to hear what you've been doing. Awesome. With the film.
So just like you said, that film can be such a powerful tool for many things. I always said that like the reason I wanted to get into film in general and as a content creator is because I just remember the early days of like walking out of the movie theater. Like I remember leaving Free Willy and like wanting a whale and feeling like moved and all these irrational things. No, where would I get a whale and where would it fit in my house? But just like living in this world that was created by the filmmakers, and that was so powerful. And I was like, I want to do that. So what I realized about film and beyond just narrative film, but documentary, is that it really is so inspiring, and it's a self-development tool. So much like with the reflections that we got from different audience members, they'd say, I like am inspired. What do I do next? Or this is really amazing. Can I bring you into my community for you to do a workshop? So I was being tasked and asked to create talks and experiences and workshops and things around the film. And it was something that I always wanted to do, but I didn't want to like egotistically or naively just think that that would be wanted. So put it out there, and I reached out to some places and said, look, I'm available. And and a couple people booked me, and that experience was really powerful. The audiences varied from older women in the UK that were part of a group that I did a thing for, right? So like women already on their journeys later in life, having had children, older, And then also I just did a talk at a local high school, Jewish high school, but a local high school for the 9th grade class, which was a shock at just how thoughtful and how moved they were by the film as well. So yeah, I've been really intrigued and really excited at the prospect of taking this into any educational, inspiring, motivational setting. Doesn't have to be a school, but I also, like, my mother is a teacher, and I grew up with like just academia being the most coveted like playground. So I think to me, going and having this play at schools is like, wow, like it's very moving. And it sets me up well. I don't have to do a whole lot of talking. The movie does a lot of the work. And then I come in and I facilitate, depending on how much time I have, a fun workshop that helps each of the audience members really integrate. Because like, just like you said, you'll watch a movie and you'll think about it for the next couple days alone. And I think that's okay, but you know how we do alone. Not as well as how we do when we're in a facilitated group with other people, with people to bounce ideas off of. So I found that it's really powerful to sit in a space for 30 minutes, 45 minutes after the film to workshop, to dialogue, to integrate, because then the impact is just that much more profound.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you were saying, especially with the 9th grade class, of young people that they can surprise you with just how deep and how provocative they can get with their thinking and their questions. And I'd also think even there must be a small part that it must be really cool for many of them to watch a film and then here's the creator, or like right in front of you.
Right. Right. And you forget that. Like a part of me is like, well, they just saw a bunch of stuff about me. Like, why does that matter? And sometimes it's only just that. They just want to ask you a personal question. A couple girls came up to me after, and it wasn't like, help us with this. It was like, when you cover your hair, like, do you mostly wear hats? It was like a very specific, really cute hat based question, which the answer is typically yes. And they might not have had access to me and to ask that sort of question otherwise. And so I think that touch point, and to me, like I say, I'd love to do a global screening tour. Like that's the goal, to be able to really meet and workshop this film with as many people live as humanly possible, because I think the impact of a live conversation and a live experience is that much greater. Like that's the dream. But, I have another baby in my stomach, and I have a 19-month-old, and we have life, and it's not always logistically sound, and not everyone can fly me out. And so thank goodness for Zoom and, all the other fantastic, video conferencing options we have, that I've been doing a lot of this virtually.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. And you kind of brought up an interesting point that sometimes I could, not just with the 9th graders, could be with any audience that's participating in a workshop, where they might even ask you questions about being a female filmmaker, about being a Jewish filmmaker, about representation. I mean, that's obviously front and center for everything in the arts right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you this whole other platform that you can springboard off of your film, and it can take in all kinds of different directions. I mean, you could probably be talking for hours really about certain things, depending on what kind of questions the audience has.
Well, be careful, Mark, because that is kind of where I've grown into over the last, I keep forgetting, we follow each other on social media, and so we're sort of up to speed. But the last year, as the film has again been in many film festivals. One of the film festivals, it was El Paso. The moderator was a film professor, and he was also a producer. And it like a Hollywood producer, not specifically a predominantly Jewish or anything. And he asked me, how come there's not more Jewish storytelling? How is it that like Jews, sort of like they founded, or the big pioneers of Hollywood, but you're not seeing a lot of honest, sort of holistic Jewish content? Like, what's the deal there? Where's the representation? And like, yes, this is also coming on the heels of Sarah Silverman complaining about like all these amazing Jewish characters are played by non-Jews. So what's going on? And to me, I never really gave that all that much thought. Like, did it bug me that actors can play anything? So it didn't quite bug me that Jews were not getting cast as Jews, but I guess there was something there. And being asked those questions started to force me to step more and more into the role I've chosen to be in accidentally, but nothing's really by accident, as a Jewish storyteller, to really take on the responsibility of telling more of these stories. So I actually have started to develop my own slate within Manifest Media, which is my production company that I run with my husband. We're often tasked by Jewish organizations to make compelling, virally optimized media. But now I'm like, okay, great. That's great organizationally. But what about big media? What about what we're seeing on Netflix? What about what we're seeing on TV? What about the stuff that when we scroll or when we stream and binge watch, where is that representation? And how can I be a part of that? So that absolutely has been at the forefront of conversations that I have, and also just the work that I'm doing behind the scenes of developing more Jewish forward, mindful, holistic, cinematic content that tells the stories of our people that have never been told.
Well, that's wonderful to hear because, again, I've had the pleasure of speaking to so many different creative people over the last 2 years, and particularly probably the last year or so, hearing people talking about their specific area where they're looking at representation across the board, not just in one particular lane or one silo. And it's really made me kind of think twice about it too, about like, who do I interview? What shows do I go to? And you have to kind of find this balance of what am I okay with? And then if I'm okay with it, should I be maybe not a little bit okay with it and pushing myself out of that comfort zone?
Wow, good for you.
It's interesting. It's an interesting journey to be on, and I'm going to be on it probably for the rest of my life, really.
And it, I was talking about it earlier today. It's like it might be a sign of the times in many ways, and the sensitivities, and also there's just so much content. There's just so much content, and we're also connected. So I think before, when I grew up with, there's no social media, there was barely internet, and we watched TV shows, and there was no one to talk about them with. There's no places where you could post. There's no Facebook. So the conversations were the ones you were having with your family about the show. Now, you see something and within seconds you have articles and opinion pieces and op-eds and everything, Reddit and there's just so much more out there right now, and the opinions run wild, which is great. And it makes you think so much more. And I'm on the same journey. I want to be sensitive. I also don't want to be too sensitive to the point where, like there was a recent thing with Bradley Cooper, who's playing a Jewish composer, and people were up in arms about the prosthetic nose, like an extension of the prosthetic nose. They were saying it's Jew face. Like, how could you do that? And I was like, okay, let's just pause for a second. The extension of a nose, yes, does it lean into some tropes and some potential propaganda that happened during the Holocaust about, no, maybe, yes. But do I think that the filmmakers are anti-Semites that did that particular, specifically to be anti-Semitic? No, I don't think so. So it's one of those things where I want to be sensitive. I want to be careful. I also don't want to be too sensitive where suddenly I'm becoming the victim consciously and constantly, right? I don't want that victim consciousness either. So it's an interesting balance to strike, especially as a minority, and wanting to properly and strongly represent my people, not to come out there, whining and crying and complaining. So I'm with you, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to do that at every step of the way.
Yeah, it's something, and this is something that some people know about my background, some people don't, is that I grew up in a suburb of Seattle called Kirkland, which was predominantly Caucasian when I grew up. So I've faced this kind of thing, especially as an adult, many, many times, where it's kind of like, you're not very Asian, you're not very Japanese American, you're not very this. And then even it's bled into doing these live streams where people are like, well, how come you don't have representation on your walls of Japan or, other kinds of things? And I'm like, well, I have things on here that relate to what Eclectic Arts does. And some of them were gifts to me. So I don't look at beyond that. But then there's a part of my brain that says, why don't I have something like that? So it's, I don't know. Again, at the end of the day, I need to be, my gut check has to be okay with whatever decision I make.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let someone try to force me into any which direction whatsoever. Life's too short for that. But it does raise a point, just because I tend to overthink things anyway. So
you said your birthday is this month, right? Are you a Gemini?
June 16th. Yeah, I'm a Gemini.
I'm June 21st. I'm also a Gemini. We overthink things.
Oh.
This is what we do. Happy birthday month, brother. Yeah, no.
Yes, same
makes
to you.
perfect sense. It makes now, like now thinking back to watching my movie, now you understand why we're kindred spirits, because we think that way, but we're not the only ones. It just so happens we live in our heads a little bit more than others.
Yeah, no, for sure. And as I was talking with my other guest about something that it's been so interesting having this time to talk with people like yourself, where you find your tribe is actually out there. Because sometimes you feel that you're very alone in your thinking.
Yeah.
And then you find like, no, there's this person, this person, this person. And then that's just the small little slice of it. There's a ton of other ones. I just haven't met them yet. So it's exciting that you don't feel so lost in your thoughts.
Absolutely. We all have thoughts, and we all get lost in them. And that's the truth, is that is a constant. I mean, that's why meditation and mindfulness is such a strong practice that none of us find enough time to commit to, because of that very truth that we all have thoughts and we aren't them. And that's a hard thing to realize moment by moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I know one other thing that kind of goes back to what you were saying by doing the workshops with American Birthright. What's it been like? Because I think when I first did the interview, I don't know if you'd had a chance or many chances to screen the film with a live audience. And I assume you've done that many times now.
Yeah. Right. So when we spoke, I hadn't screened it really for anyone but my internal team. And then we started just getting it out into the film festival circuit. And I was a new mom at the time. And so it was really nice to not have to go anywhere or leave the house. But at the same time, I couldn't really feel the impact of the film. I'd get emails, I'd get feedback from festival heads, I'd get followers saying, I saw your movie at this festival. And like, that was really, really lovely. But it wasn't, I hadn't had a live audience see it. And the first live screening was at the Philly Jewish Film and Media Festival, which was November of last year. So from March to November, it was like all virtual. November, we had a small audience and people were still very hesitant to leave the house. People weren't showing up. No one was going to anything. We had a crowd of maybe 30 people. And it was still really, really nice to just be there. I was in my hometown. I was with my production partner who helped me do the film. And we're sitting there for a live Q&A, and it was magical. And I was like, but I want more than this. Now, flash forward to March of this past year. So a year after we spoke, I was given the opportunity to have a 9-day theatrical run at the Laemmle Theaters, which is like an art house, really awesome independent theater that plays Batman, but also plays like American Birthright. And it was, I don't even know how to explain the experience. It was so moving. It was so thrilling. It was a mix of, family and friends that have been wanting to see it or have seen it, but came back out because they wanted the togetherness experience on the big screen. And then a bunch of people who heard about it. And I tacked on partners, and each night of that 9-day, for the most part, some nights we didn't have a partner, but each night I had a different partner in the community. And so partners would bring their people, and I would dip into other communities, and we would have Q&As. And I remember one night I had 5 people there, and I still came, and it was so powerful. Like, if there was one person in the audience, I would show up and I would hang out after, because it was thrilling. And I would often sit and watch the movie too, which is strange. Like, how many times can I actually watch this film? But sitting in the audience with a theater of people experiencing it, you hear laughter at new places, you see tears, and I have chills talking about it. The feedback was just phenomenal. People came back a second time and brought friends. And so that was really successful. And the Laemmle invited me back for a one night only. And this was last week on Wednesday, the 25th, at their like iconic location in West LA, the Laemmle Royal. And we packed out the theater, and it was, 100 people in this small space, and which was like wonderful and awesome. And like the screen was big and beautiful and felt like a little Hollywood, like Broadway trim, not Hollywood. Like, I imagine like what Broadway often has is like a cool little gold frame around the stage. It was just basically all I'm saying is it felt really like next level. And sitting there, my production partner flew in from Philly with her husband, My husband was there and a bunch of people were there. And it was just like, wow, this is really cool. This is totally what I dreamed of. Very different experience than the virtual. Both are wonderful. I'm blessed and very, very grateful for both. But having people see it live is like why I'm so fueled and passionate to get this out there in a live experience for the next however long I can until the next project. But this one in particular really feels like it has a different life than my other projects because of the takeaway, because of the impact, because of the educational angle. And I'm exploring what that looks like. I'm open.
Well, congratulations on all the theatrical, especially the run at the Lumley.
It's so fun.
What's so interesting is that there's a wonderful documentary about that cinema chain. I just saw it during one of the film festivals this year, and I forget the name of it. I forget the name of it, but yeah, it was fascinating, and it talks about them all the way up to they're having some money issues right before COVID hit, and then they're trying to how are we going to make it through and all these other kind of things. But they talk about their humble beginnings and the art house stuff that they were showing back in the day, and it's like so. I was when you mentioned it, I actually know what that theater is.
They're awesome. They're awesome, and I'd always known about the Lemley, and so when I had that opportunity, I was like, wow, this is so special, and they're really special. They're family owned. Like Greg Lemley, I worked with directly, and he was a treat, like so special, so special.
Yeah, no, that's just like if I was to record some music and I got to play it in like one of my favorite venues around town, like the one I always grew up with, kind of a thing. Like, if I could ever play there, then I've made it.
Right. And of course, like I really did feel that way. And then it's always like you'll play there and then go, okay, what's next? Because now that I've had this taste, and I do feel really satisfied. Like I told myself, once this screening is over, you're allowed to be in an official, unofficial maternity leave. Like I hustled. I had so many partners for this one night only. I wanted to get it out there as much as possible. We had big press. Like we got coverage from the Jerusalem Post, which got us tons of website traffic, tons. And we also got Kveller. Kveller is a really fun, like lifestyle, Jewish lifestyle, op-ed type publication. I don't even know if that's how they would describe themselves, but they're fun and witty and quirky. And that piece also got us tons of traffic and a bunch. Now the movie is available for rent on our website. And so we got a bunch of rentals, which is also really exciting. And that is sort of our next phase, is to open the movie up, make it accessible. I was holding it close to my chest. I didn't want to offer it up for many reasons. Fear of maybe not maximizing its exposure by just saying anyone can rent it. So I wanted to keep it exclusive. And then I realized that I don't think exclusivity will increase bookings or anything like that. I think just by getting it out there and sharing it, we'll actually be able to share it more, and we'll actually increase our likelihood of more press, of more opportunities, of more partnerships and more screenings. So that's where we're at now, that it is available. And if people see it and want an experience around it, they want to bring it to their community, they want to bring it to their school, they want to bring it to their organization, that they can still do that in a really dynamic way with us, with the team as well, which I think, again, you can watch it alone, you can watch it with your family, or you can watch it with a theater and the filmmakers, and you choose your own adventure, whichever feels right.
Awesome. Yes. And for folks that want to rent it after this interview, the link is in the YouTube description. So you can just click on it. It'll take you right there. Spend a couple bucks and then off you go.
Also support, by the way, like let another Gemini be like, it's also my birthday month. But more than that is all the proceeds go to supporting our efforts to tell holistic, dynamic, cinematic Jewish narratives in the mainstream, not in an echo chamber, not just for the Jewish people, but for all. Because I was just on a podcast, and she's a lovely lady, had no understanding of Judaism and was very open about that, and said, I'm so glad you made this film, because now I get access to understanding where you come from, understanding your tradition. And I think that sort of media is so important. And I tried to hire her to be my PR, but really she's right in that I love that I'm able to create more and more media that educates, that unites us. I'm able to bring my tradition and share about it in a cinematic, beautiful way that's accessible and that unites us, and that hopefully decreases any forms of anti-Semitism or intolerance or ignorance, because I think that's where a lot of that negativity comes from, is a lack of understanding.
Well, that's beautiful, and we need more of that, especially considering what's been going on in the last couple of weeks out there in society and in the world. I mean, there's been nothing but negativity everywhere you look. So more power to you. I mean,
Thank you.
We absolutely need it. I think one other thing that's kind of interesting is that my uncle was very much an activist in the 60s, and he was an activist his entire life. So to the day he was dying, he'd be out there marching for anything that he believed in. And one thing that when he started his nonprofit agency many, many years ago in South Seattle, which I worked at for about 10 years myself,
oh, wow.
was that he saw that all the other places that were doing similar types of work were very exclusive to the Spanish community, to the African-American community, to the Jewish community. And he was like, I want to open my doors to anyone that needs this help. And when you're talking about what you're saying, that's not just specifically for the Jewish community, that's for anyone. And again, folks, I've seen the film, so Becky's speaking the truth. It can resonate with anyone. And so I love that aspect of it, because eventually you can't just be doing this with the people within your circle. It's got to go beyond it at some point. And your film definitely does. And it's great that you have other projects and you're already thinking that the next thing I do, what's next? Where's the next mountain at? And I want to make sure it keeps going out this way, not keeping it like this.
Exactly. You know, what you said made me think of, and it's a constant struggle. And just to sort of, when you were talking about your Japanese background too, is the struggle between pluralism and particularism. And like, we're in a world of many different kinds of people, but we are also a specific kind of person too, right? You come from a specific people. So what's that balance? How do you reconcile? How do you live a particular life within a pluralistic society? And how can that be in a way that works best for you? And for me, for a very long time, I wasn't very particularist, because I didn't want that. Like, I kind of just wanted to be open for all and be kind of, and it was only really recently and mostly through my documentary journey that I owned my particularness within the pluralistic society that we live in. And it helped me. It helped me to find what is my unique voice, but also how do I broaden and bring that out to everyone? So I love what you're saying. And I love that, like, I have nothing on my wall, but if I had stuff on my wall, it wouldn't be just a bunch of Jewish stuff. It would be a bunch of stuff, human stuff. We are all human. But there would probably be a few pieces, just like this film, as one on the big slate, that is a particular journey, is a specific journey, is a niche journey, because it is also really important to tell our stories, if that is important to us. But I think, like, you and I were born to a specific people in a specific place for a reason. And so there is something there. We don't have to make it so much bigger than it is. But if it calls you, then there's a line in the documentary. It's like, if that whisper calls to you, don't you dare bury it. If it calls to you, don't bury it, because you really get to access so much more of yourself in that. So don't bury the whisper. If something's calling you to explore about your life, about your identity, about your journey, and it doesn't feel so cool or current, and it feels really like, go there, because it might be something that's really the key to your soul and to your happiness.
Don't bury the whisper. I can't wait to tell that to a coworker that we had a pretty long discussion last week about. And I won't get into all the details of it, but if I say that to him, it's going to resonate with him immediately. I already know, because because he was talking to me about some of the things as he heard what my background was outside of what I do for my day job. He just said, Mark, it made me start thinking about some things. I kind of feel like I've been having this calling to do this, this, and this. And now I have something to kind of reference him to. It's like, guess what happened? Go watch my live stream from Thursday night.
Don't you dare bury it. And it's not my line, but it is the access to the true happiness. When you bury that whisper, you bury your heart. When you bury your heart, you bury your hope, and you bury your future. And that it just all comes from that first whisper. And the whisper comes again, but like, let it fuel you. Because when you listen, you get all that hope and all that passion and all that purpose. And that's your future right there. So do it, friend of Mark's, lucky friend of Mark's.
Yeah, no, if he's there tomorrow, I would definitely be stopping by his office.
I love it. I love that. Oh, what a blessing. See, that's the point. It's the point of all of this.
Yeah, and as we get closer to winding this up, Becky, I absolutely, and I don't know how you're going to be able to do this in a short amount of time, but when I last talked to you, you and your family were selling everything down in California, and you're going to get into an RV and make your way across the country to Philadelphia. And in some sort of nutshell, what was that experience like? Were there certain things that stick out in your mind as I bring this up right now? What can you tell me?
That's so funny because you're such a good marker of that time in life. We were like COVID crazy, like frenzied by being at home. Or like we could do our work from anywhere. So we bought this fifth wheel and a truck and hitched the thing and moved everything into storage and put the stuff we needed into the RV and drove across the country with a 7-month-old. Like, just, like no big deal. Like anyone can do this, right? And it was beautiful and a once in a lifetime opportunity and very challenging and really awesome. Once we made it across the country, we went like straight through middle America from LA to Philly and found some really awesome spots. We like fell in love with Colorado. Nebraska was oddly inspiring. And then we made it to Pennsylvania and stayed there for 3 months by my family to finally see them. Like, no one was traveling during COVID. I just had a baby and it was really beautiful to be with family. We were in post-production on a show. So we were able to work from the woods in Pennsylvania by my family. And that was really, really special. And then we made our way back. We went down south. We almost moved to Atlanta, which is very affordable, very much so compared to LA. So we spent some time in Atlanta and in the rural areas of Georgia, which was really special, on a friend's farm, went down to Florida and then back up and across the South, Texas, Santa Fe. New Mexico, we didn't make it to Santa Fe, but New Mexico, so many other states that I've left out, but it was an awesome journey. And we came back with a new baby in utero with a toddler, right? And into the summer of LA, trying to find a place. And now we're rooted again out of the RV in an actual home, That was an actual home, in a home that doesn't move. And it was really special. And I would do it again. I would do it differently. I would probably do it when the kids are a little bit older because it was tough to really sightsee with a 6-month-old who had like a 3-nap-a-day routine that we were sticking to. But it was amazing. And for anyone who has questions about RVing or is thinking about it, we saw so many different families who were on the road full time. They're called full timers with all of their children. They would homeschool their kids and they would live in parks across the country, to people who were retired and had spent their lives working regular jobs. And now we're like, you know what? Screw the home thing. We're going to live on the road. So we met some really awesome people and it was a hoot. And now we're back. So that lots of stuff stuck out, and also as a Gemini, I like being in the air, but I realized the priority that I have on being rooted and having solid ground. Because by the end of the trip, I was ready to get back. I was like, I can't do this full time. Maybe later in my life, but right now I want a place where, like, when I flush the toilet, I'm not thinking about, am I filling up my black tank? And so there's just many things to think about when you're living in an RV. But it was fantastic. It was a fantastic experience. We have so many cool pictures on my Instagram. My handle is at Becky Tahel. Really fun pictures, really cool stops, really awesome sights, and just, again, a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Well, I'm glad you had such a fantastic time doing that. I was so curious over a year ago when you first told me that you were doing that. I was like, gosh, I can't wait to see these pictures. And can we maybe do something from the road somehow when you're out there? I remember. And it's like, this is going to be, and like at that time, you didn't know. You're just going to say, we're going to throw this to the wind, Mark, and we'll see what happens.
And that's what it was. And people were like, are you going to do another documentary about your journey? I was like, no, not at all. I'll tell you what, I was not called to make that documentary. I just wanted to be in it. I wanted to experience it, wanted to enjoy it. And we took a lot of photo and video, but it's certainly not a movie. Maybe a part of something, but it was just to have a lot of fun and to inspire people to also think differently. I think people were really inspired to think outside the box. I had several friends reach out to me sort of asking about, like, okay, if I'm going to do an RV vacation, like, what do you recommend? And I love that I can be a resource because we did so much research about what kind of RV to get, what route to take. and it all depends on how long you're going for, who you're going with, and your priorities. And so all of that I'm here for. We can book a consult, an RV consult with me, and I got you.
Wow, you got so many so many things in your skill set, in your tool
Half
belt.
joking, half serious.
And you speak a lot when you're talking about the folks that you ran into on your journey doing that. There's a couple bands that I saw that, and these are not like new younger bands. These are bands that have been established in their, I think the members might be like in their 50s, that sold their homes and are living in RVs. So when they're not on the road, that's what they're doing now. They
Really?
decided,
Like actual bands? Wow.
yeah, and I was surprised by that when the one guy said, yeah, he posted this thing about how he and his wife had sold their home. And it's like, oh, so people were saying, where are you moving to? He said, we're not moving. We're moving to this. And he pointed to this RV and said, we're going to kind of drive it around. And when we need to be on the road, then we're going to park it on some place and then do the tour. And then we come back to it and we just keep on going. Like we're almost constantly on tour, whether we're playing shows or not.
It's about, again, your lifestyle and how, if it were just my husband and I think it would be a different experience. But having children and also children have checkups and children go to school, and I'm not a homeschooler. Like as much as I love teaching, and I said academia is like, no, I just know myself. And so those elements of like raising children while on the road, kudos to families and parents that are able to homeschool while being on the road. But for me, it was just too much for me. So I would do it later. Maybe if the kids are older, I would do it once the kids are out of the house. And I could see that because it's really cool. It's like you have a different front yard every week if you choose. It could be every day. Sometimes we would move every other day. And that was cool. Again, it's a lot to coordinate. Where am I going? What hookups do I have? Do I have the right hookups? Is it comfortable? Will it fit my rig? Like, is it where I want to be? So you are planning. That's the difference. It's a mindset of sort of like, where do I want to be? And you're can you imagine constantly moving? So you're always sort of like, what neighborhood do I want to be in? Do I want to sit? There's a lot of research and work and energy that goes into that. And then actually physically driving there and then unloading, packing, so you're constantly moving. And, that's a big stressor for people in general when they move from a house to house. Here, you're doing that often. You don't have to put things in boxes. You're bringing all of your stuff with you, which is like the coolest, best part. We'd leave a campsite and I'd be like, did I forget something? No, what am I going to forget? Everything's right behind us. So that was the best part of it. But there is a lot to think about and logistically to coordinate. So it just has to be about your priorities and what you want. And if you have nothing else to worry about and you're retired and you're sort of like, I want to see the world and I just want to be in different places all the time, then it's an awesome way to go, an awesome way to travel.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, not just yourself, obviously other people are doing it and I'm hearing about people doing it. And I think also a bit of the pandemic may be playing into that for some folks that they're like, what do I want to do with my life right now? It's like, I don't want to be tied down to this. Let's go out there and just kind of roam for a bit. And then if we come back, we come back.
Absolutely.
And so the rules are kind of going out the window as we found out in the last 2.5 years.
What are the rules? That's exactly right. We're just reinventing ourselves and what is normal. I mean, you see people not even going back into a normal office ever again. And that's really interesting. That's very new.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this for us. I like it. We'll see where it goes.
Okay, cool. So as we wrap this up, and you've kind of mentioned that, obviously you have a baby on the way, and you want to really expand American Birthright into some of these other areas. You've kind of kept it close to yourself, but now you're ready to kind of let it loose and see what other connections, other kind of wonderful things it brings to you and to other people around the world. Is there anything else specifically that you also have kind of percolating that you'd like to mention before we wrap this up?
So American Birthright for sure. I mean, we need and love your support. If anyone hasn't seen it, please rent it. If there's a financial burden, please email me. My information is on the website, AmericanBirthrightFilm.com. It's probably listed right below. And then Manifest Media, that's our, baby that has been growing right alongside American Birthright, has had a humongous impact on helping American Birthright see itself to fruition. It's our production company, and we're developing our slate. So I always say there's obviously an invitation to, if there is like an epic piece of content, we'd love to partner. We'd love to explore. We develop, prep, produce, do all post-production and distribute, like work in terms of a holistic production company to create really dynamic, mindful media. So we're always open to partnering with people who are doing the good work, doing the real work, and people who want to be a part of mindful media. So if you're listening and you're like, I've always really wanted to be a producer or like be a part of a team or lend my efforts, my energy in whatever way, I want to donate, and we have the options to do 501c3, like, taxable tax write-off donations, as well as investments. I want to do that with a company that really cares about making media that's going to change the world and change thoughts and broaden vantage points. Then email, call, whatever works for you, because we're here for it. We're not shy to ask for help. And we're open to that sort of partnership from the ground up. Like, yes, there are studios and networks, and yes, we have to work with them, and we will. But we also really want to work with our brothers and sisters and family on the ground, people who might not be in the biz or know about the biz, but want to get involved in some way. Please support, please, reach out, and we'll find a way to work together as well. So that's our two things. We have a slate of content that we're developing. We're getting American Birthright out there. So if you want to book a screening, or if you just want to rent, either is fair game, and I'm here for it.
Awesome. Well, Becky, thank you so much for taking 45 minutes.
Look at us.
Yeah,
to talk. Going. You get two Geminis going. I mean, this could have gone way longer. We're good. I was succinct. I've been working on it.
Oh, no, I really appreciate talking with you again and catching up and hearing about everything. And congratulations on your second child and on the film doing so well and your in-person theatrical screenings and just everything. So, yeah, anytime you want to just reconnect, or if you have something specific that you want to come on and Mark, I got this new project, I want to promote it, please, you know how to hit me up. And I will always have an open door for you at all times.
Thank you. It means so much. We should do it at least every year and a half. Like, we've been on a track record so far. So the next time I will be a mom of two, and hopefully with another big project to share. And also, everyone, please support Mark. I love what you're doing. I love that you spend time on top of a full-time regular job doing this and helping artists like me share what we do, get our work out into the world. Your media coverage, I mean, the testimonials we wrote about American Birthright are the ones that we share with press, because your words and just how much you care, how much you listen. Look at this background and look at the little blurb you did in the beginning and you just put so much effort and care into what you do, and it really shows. And I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be a friend and a co-creator on this piece. But thank you so much for having me and for keeping me in your circle. And I'm excited to be back. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I sincerely appreciate that. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's it made my night. And happy early birthday to you as well. Thank you.
The 16th, June 16th, everyone donate.
Yes, please. Don't forget about the 21st either of June. There we go. Becky, thank you so much. Have a good night. Stay safe down there. And yeah, can't wait to see what you're up to next.
Can't wait. Everyone keep in touch. I'm here.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.